And joining us now, York University professor Ananya Mukherjee Reed, who joins us again in studio. How are you tonight?
Well,
it's nice to have you back here. The main reason we wanted you to visit us is that you're about to go to India for 6 months. Before we get to the nuts and bolts of your visit, though, give me your sense of how Mumbai is doing 3 weeks after that awful terrorist attack.
Well, it's, I suppose, doing as well as it can. There is tremendous trauma, insecurity, anger, everything. But there are some developments that I think are favorable. Number one is some heads of role. There have been some fairly major changes in administration and also in reorganizing the security infrastructure. Things are being done on that front.
All as a result of the attacks?
As a result of the attacks. The other very big plus, I think, is that for now there is a decision not to go for war. And I think there is the anti-war voices are becoming stronger now that the trauma, the immediate trauma, may be residing a little bit.
Not to go to war in Pakistan, I presume.
Yes, but there were concerns on the building tension and to what extent it can be de-escalated and so on. But the peace process between India and Pakistan are at a pause, as the foreign minister has said. And there is a lot of course, soul-searching going on also inside India about how best to organize the intelligence machinery. A federal body like the Homeland Security has been floated, much tighter laws are being put in place. And there's going to be debates about, there was actually quite a productive debate on the, in the parliament. And the other interesting and favorable part of this is that there were state elections going on. Actually, Delhi voted the day the attacks were on. And the voters still appear to have rejected any effort to politicize terror. So any of the campaigns which were trying to go on the terror platform have actually not done well, and the votes seem to have been quite clearly for a developmental agenda. Okay. So that is a positive.
And in the midst of all of that, you're going there.
Yes.
You're going early next year for 6 months.
Yeah, I'm actually going later this month.
Oh, all right.
Yes.
Sooner than I thought.
Yeah.
What for?
I'm on sabbatical, and I am going to Bangalore, which, as you know, is the outsourcing capital of not only India and of the world. But I want to look at primarily the agrarian crisis, which is developed. It's a very big crisis in India, and I would like to look at the alternatives that are being proposed, the social movements that have come in response to the crisis, as in terms of solutions to the crisis. And this is what I would like to see firsthand.
What particularly is in crisis? And because you look around the whole world is in economic crisis right now. So
this is actually not a financial crisis. Well, it has elements of that too, but a real crisis of the agrarian sector. And some of the most visible face of it, I think I've talked about it here before, but you might know, is the suicide of farmers. And now it's being reported that between 1997 and 2007, there's been close to 200,000 farmer suicides.
I saw that the other day. That's an astonishing number, isn't it?
That is an astonishing number. And the solutions that have been proposed by the government so far are bailouts and some write-offs of farmer debts. But that does not really solve the deeper crisis of inequality of land and of producers having access to the inputs at a cost that is feasible.
Do you draw a line between those suicides and globalization?
Draw a line. Well, there is a connection, for sure, in the sense that not directly globalization, although some people argue that the arrival of particular kinds of agricultural production, agricultural products, patenting and so on, have made crops more vulnerable. But the connection is more the withdrawal of public support to agriculture. 70% of Indians, even now, with all the outsourcing story, 70% of Indians are actually actually dependent on agriculture. So, and 52% of the workforce are employed in the agrarian sector. So withdrawal of public investment in agriculture, taking reduction of credit, and all of this having to be provided in the private market created, and a fall in commodity prices, in vulnerability of commodity prices, has compounded into this crisis. And so there are several ways in which people are looking at alternatives, like through organic farming, through coming back to questions of better redistribution of land and so on.
You want a first-hand look at all of this?
Yes.
Is India still as gung-ho for high-tech and the possibilities that offers as it has been in the past decade?
Yes and no, because it is still, in the financial crisis, it is the one sector which, yes, people do think that it is being hit, but it is being hit the least, and it has been growing at 30%, and it is a very important part of at least the globalized India. Now, so the people in the high-tech sector certainly are very committed to maintaining it. But the possibility of high-tech alone, of sustaining the kind of miraculous growth that India has been seeing at 8%, 9%, and so on, is now more and more in question, because the value of outsourcing, number one, that it is so linked to the US demand, and so what happens to it now, there are questions about that. Secondly, the difference is primarily in terms of the cost of labor, and so how much can that, for how much and how long can that give dividends? And also it employs a very narrow section of the Indian workforce, right? 93% of Indian workforce is still working in the informal sector. So it's a very, very narrow section. And so the effect it will have in this broader, especially now that the crisis has hit, over a long time, that is being called more and more into question. Yes.
I'm told as well you have an interest on how globalization affects the secularism of Indian society. What are you going to look for there?
A very interesting question. I think we talked about this once in your show before. As you know, India has a very diverse and complex social fabric. There is a caste system, which in principle should not make for any, there is no discrimination allowed on the basis of caste, but there are, the problem of inequality remains. Then there are different kind of religious groups and a whole amorphous group of deprived communities who the Indian government terms as other backward classes. So there is a lot of inequality amongst these groups, which are, of course, income inequalities, but not only income inequalities. And so the big expectation with globalization was that any kind of entrenched patterns of privilege are going to be displaced, and it's going to be merit and people's abilities and able to function in certain ways in the job market is what is going to determine how people do.
The reality is?
The reality is that entrenched patterns of privilege are entrenched patterns of privilege. And there are huge debates on affirmative action. Not unlike anywhere else, people think that, affirmative action might contaminate merit in some ways. And it is a source of intense social conflict. And so, yes, this is something I also would like to look at firsthand. I looked at it quite a bit in my recent book, but how it is exactly going to unfold, especially in this time of crisis, is something I would like to look at.
A couple of minutes left, and I want to ask you about two more things. You're going to be there, I guess, when the national elections are happening in the spring.
Yes.
Can you kind of handicap that race for people who don't follow it but are interested? Handicap the race for us, if you would.
Well, the electorate is 670 million people.
It's a big democracy.
There are 7 national parties and about 50 other state-based parties, and then I think about 500 or so other unrecognized parties. So it is, you can imagine that the electoral diversity is great. But the major parties here would be the Congress, which is now in power, leading an alliance, and the BJP, which was in power before, and then there is a number of left parties and so on. And in terms of how this is going to unfold, BJP and Congress are the two leading sort of opponents. And it looks like, you know, kind of a replay with a twist of the American elections, where from the Congress it could be that Rahul Gandhi, who is a very young Obama-type leader, not quite that savvy at political organization and a lot more elitist, but the same generation and the same kind of stature. And then there is L.K. Advani of BJP, who is much senior, much closer to age to McCain, and also running primarily on questions of terror, national security, and so on, whereas the Congress agenda, especially the one that Rahul Gandhi will lead, is more on development and so on. So we might see...
A lot of echoes there.
A lot of echoes there, and so we will see. And then there is also somebody who should be... people should be watching. This is Mayawati, who is a woman who is from the lower caste, the Dalits, and she is now the chief minister of the state which has the largest number of seats in the parliament. And she has made some electoral gains recently, and she could be the third sort of force which bleeds votes from both. So how the electoral arithmetic will come out is now, there no predictions can be made. But it seems that because the Congress is appearing to manage the post-Mumbai situation well, that it, and people seem to be rejecting politicization of the terror plank, that they might have at least a good chance, better chance than one had thought before.
Okay. We wish you well on your trip. We know you're going to blog for us while you're over there, so people can go to our website once you're there, I guess in a month or so, tvo.org, and look for your dispatches from India. Thanks so much.
Look forward
Have
to
a good trip.
Thanks.